In a trading role, a trader has to have a short memory, and they have to accept that they can be wrong. You have to wake up every day, look at the world fresh, and say, what position do I want? Okay, is that the position I have? If yes, great, you're gonna have a good day. If not, you gotta figure out how to get out of your position. Some days you just feel like, you know what, screw it.
Yeah.
But we have formulas that rely on it. People go on about stress and all this and how to reduce it, but I do think as a leader, we have an obligation. We've been asked by the shareholders or whatever to, hey, I need you in this role, and that comes with stress.
Welcome to Unlock Potential, the show where we dive deep into leadership, purpose, and growth. Today's guest is James Dargan, a global leader in the coffee trade and head of Asia Pacific at Sucafina. If you've ever wondered what it takes to lead cross-continental teams, navigate market chaos, and still come home and be present as a father and a husband, then this is the episode for you. James shares powerful lessons from Africa to Asia, from commodity volatility to personal value. Now grab your coffee and get ready, because this one is rich, bold, and full of insight you don't want to miss. James, thanks for stopping in and having a chat with me today. I really appreciate it. Could you let us know how'd you end up in Asia? And I know a little bit about your Africa experience and what got you to lead Sucafina here in Vietnam.
Sure, thanks for having me. It's a bit of a convoluted story. So I left the US about 20 years ago. And I was in Rwanda working for a café. I was in restaurant hospitality business. We had the first cafe in the country. I was hired to run the operations on
Wow.
that as a 21-year-old, you know. And at the same time, the country was coming out, you know, it had been 10 years since their genocide. They were rebuilding, right? And so you had coffee roasters and importers around the world. We're trying to be part of that story and say, hey, I want to come and buy coffee from Rwanda and bring it back to whatever country and pay a premium and all that. In the cafe, I met all these importers and roasters, and maybe after the 30th one asked me, hey, do you know any good exporters? I said, you know, hey, maybe I can do this. I wanted to get out of hospitality. Hospitality is fantastic, but I also knew that, you know, it's a different career, managing hospitality. It's, you know, and I wanted to do something a bit different. So I started with the Rwandan guy. We started a brokerage. And we were buying and selling, problem is we were trying to start a commodity company. We had zero money. And that's tough in commodities.
Yes.
That's tough. So you're begging farmers to give you on credit.
Yep.
And then you're begging roasters to prepay.
Yeah.
And trying to connect the dots there.
Yeah.
So that was tough. There was some months where things were really tight, you know. But fortunately, we made a little bit of traction. An investor from the U.S. Wanted to invest also in the country, was completely agnostic to the industry, didn't care. He wanted to also be part of that Rwandan regrowth story. I met him, convinced him to just back us and that. So then we bought a factory that was an old government-run factory that used to process most of the coffee of all of East Africa. Okay. I mean, and you know, the bank told us, look, here are the keys, it's good to go. And we were dumb enough to believe in the bank. You know? Of course, it had to be completely retooled. The thing was 80 years old.
Oh, wow.
You know.
In Rwanda.
In Rwanda. So, you know, learned that and said, okay, well, how do you rebuild? Okay, found a manufacturer and did it. You know, we did a lot of the installation ourselves and figured that out. Then I said, okay, how do I compete? There's 2 companies in the country and they only focus on commercial coffee. Our clientele wants to do specialty. How do I compete? one of the companies, coincidentally, was Sucafina, who I work for now. Said to compete with these guys that have basically been in the capital waiting for coffee to come in, I need to go to the village. So I spent a couple years, basically Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday in the village, building relationships with producers and producer groups, buying coffee. I mean, I would go to the bank, duffel bag of cash, load trucks all day.
Wow.
And then I would, fly to the coffee conferences around the world to try and sell it,
Okay.
So, and what that did, we were lucky in timing because that was sort of the start of the direct trade movement, where you had roasters around the world that wanted to know the provenance of where their coffee came from. And we were in a unique situation where we could actually tell them.
Yeah.
Because I was the one out there with the duffel bag of cash buying, and I knew the village it came from. So then we got a lot of traction with the specialty industry. Then I went to Tanzania, opened up a business there, was looking after Rwanda and Tanzania. Then we acquired a UK trading company, and I was looking after the East Africa. And then the company wanted to divest from, which they've been extremely successful at doing so. So I'm proud of that. But I didn't want to go back to the US. So I called Sucafina. I had met the CEO, and I said, look, if you want some help in East Africa, and that's that. So I was in, you asked me how I got to Asia. So this is still, then I was working for Sucafina in Tanzania. Day 4 of the job, the government changed the law without any warning, banning all private sector from the coffee industry.
Wow.
So the CEO, I'm scared. I'm like, oh man, I'm 4 days in. They hired me to develop. I called the CEO and I said, look, I got some bad news for you.
We can't do business anymore.
He said, don't worry. Your job is secure, but you have 3 months to reinvent yourself and find a way to add value.
Wow, okay. That's pretty cool.
So your job is secure for 3 months.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's all I need. Look, Sucafina wasn't doing anything in Asia. We had Vietnam as a sort of a rep office and a little factory here, but no sales, no other countries. And I had traded a lot with Japan in my previous company. I said, hey, let's open up Asia. And then we found a company to acquire that was in Hong Kong, so I moved to Hong Kong. In the last 6 years, we've opened up a dozen countries in the region. We're in basically every country where they grow coffee and consume coffee.
Yes. That's pretty big.
So yeah, that's how I got here. It was a bit randomly. I wish it was some sort of grand plan. But most people in agricultural commodities, you just sort of weave through, and that's how you end up there.
How do you deal with the volatility of that? Like, as in with your staff or with your suppliers? I mean, just juggling the volatility of the prices and, buying at in one day and then promising it 2 days later, but at that time it's already out of whack or dropped or...
Well, that's the thing, and that's what we say in trading. Trading is easy, risk management is hard. So it's easy enough to buy and sell, but when the market goes crazy, what are you doing? And we're dealing in places where you have contracts, there's no judiciary system. What am I going to do? Take a farmer to court in whatever country? No ways. I would lose, and it just wouldn't work.
Cost you more.
It wouldn't work. So we do have these cases where I buy from you for $1 on Monday for delivery next week. On Wednesday, the market is now $1.50. So you as a farmer can say, do I deliver to Sucafina or James or whoever at $1, or do I side sell and make an extra 50 cents? Knowing that if I do that, you've killed this relationship. I never buy from you again. And normally our rule of thumb is most people will not default for 10 or 20 cents a pound.
Okay.
But we've seen coffee in the last 24 months go from a historical average of $1.50, $1.60 to over 400 cents. So we're at all-time highs now in coffee.
Yeah, it's unreal.
And so that's definitely a thing, and you really have to rely on the relationship. It's a relationship business. It's a people business, and you go. Our team goes to that farmer. We have dinner with them. We go to church with them. We pray for the rains with them. We do everything and be as close as possible. Sometimes we'll have to average out contracts. So we'll say, okay, I bought 1 ton from you. Now the price is double. I'll buy another ton, and we average out.
Yes,
so we do things like that.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have it on the flip side. As the price is coming down, your roasters start to default on you.
Yeah.
It's maybe not as straightforward as they will find a quality problem. And as we were talking before, you taste a few cups out of 20 tons.
Okay.
If you taste enough, you'll find a defect.
Sure.
And so, again, it's the relationship.
Yeah.
Going, visiting. So there's a lot of boots on the ground. Yes, we have contracts, but very rarely it comes to that.
What causes, now, for me, when I think of commodities, I think of the movie Trading Places, but that shows you how old I am. And the frozen concentrated orange juice. But what causes the price to be an all-time high when, typically to me, I was thinking, well, there was, weather related is why the orange juice is changed. But, coffee's global. I mean, they're growing it all over the place. So
it's primarily weather.
Okay.
Right? It is climate change. It's real. And I would say climate volatility.
Okay.
So we're seeing in countries, some countries it's too wet, some it's too dry, some it's too hot, some it's the volatility of climate. And so we're seeing that it's just disrupting growth.
So it is still weather related.
It is weather. We had a frost 3 years ago in Brazil that wiped out a few million bags. So that was not great. And then since then, we haven't seen the rebound and growth. And we could talk hours about all the nuances around it. But you also have in Central America, you have a lot of migration. So there's not enough workers.
Yeah.
So normally when you have a Brazil frost, prices doubled overnight. Normally farmers around the world, especially in Central America, okay, to plant coffee, it's 3 years. Normally they say, let me put more fertilizer on, really take care of the trees to take advantage of this high price. That didn't happen because they didn't have the labor to do it. So you had a labor migration into North America, preventing the supply response. And then you had weather issues here and in Indonesia and in Colombia and some of the places that didn't have. So it's really sort of a perfect storm.
I can see for here probably some flood, too much rain.
We had too little rain and then too much rain.
And
if you get too much rain at the wrong time, even the coffee, it's harvested, but you have to do processing, you have to dry it. And if you can't dry it well enough, you get more moldy beans that you can't use and all sorts of stuff like that.
Okay. What would you say is one of the biggest differences between leading in Africa and leading in Asia as a boss of a company?
Here we're importing, trading more, so it's a different base. So that means you have to have a different type of team. We have to have salespeople. I never had salespeople in East Africa. We had purchasers, procurement agents. We don't have salespeople. So it does mean that we have a more diverse team as far as a skill set.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What do you look for in your staff that you see that, okay, hey, this person's got some potential. Maybe you see more than they can see. What are those things that you look for, like when you're I'm gonna promote this girl because of this? Or
in a trading role, a trader has to have a short memory, and they have to accept that they can be wrong. We take a position, maybe Forex is here, interest rates are here, we have our view on whatever crop, we want to go long that coffee. So we do it. Whoops. Next day or the next week after we've bought whatever amount, the world changes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a freight crisis from that country, or there's a port strike, or there's a tariff, or there's or the weather was perfect and there's way more coffee than we thought.
Yeah.
And you have to wake up every day, look at the world fresh, and say, what position do I want? Okay, is that the position I have?
Mm-hmm.
If yes, great. You're gonna have a good day. If not, you got to figure out how to get out of your position. And so having a humility and knowing, hey, I was wrong last week or yesterday or whatever, we got to get out of this thing.
Yeah.
I got to cut my losses and then live another day.
Yeah, let's start over.
That is hard mentally. It's hard for me. It's hard for anybody to take the hit. So that's first and foremost. We need entrepreneurs. We need people that can think creatively, think outside of the box. How do you have a roaster squeezing you, farmer squeezing you? How do you actually make a margin? And you got to get creative with delivery terms. And I don't say creative in a nefarious way, but how do you add a service that is costing you less than they want to than with them? And so we need people to be very dynamic and entrepreneurs.
Look for problems and come up with solutions, right?
Exactly.
Not hide from the problems.
Yeah.
So how do you mentorship resiliency then? Because I mean, this is a resilience issue. You got to be able to hit rejection and then start again, no problem, forget about it.
It's just about being there, supporting, so when there is a problem, you have to make sure you don't jump down the throat. Unless the problem was because of some negligence or something like that, but I think it's more there as a support. And I mean, on resilience, I mean, I don't know if you can necessarily teach it. Some people have grit and some people don't. And you have to, hopefully it can flourish if it was there to start with. But often we're wrong on these things too.
Correct.
We think this person is going to be great, and then they're complete dead.
Yes, exactly.
And just like a bad position, I got to get rid of it and start over.
That's right. I think that, you're a little bit younger than me, but in our generation where we didn't have texting and all that, we always had that face-to-face interaction with a girl or anything, and we would deal with rejection a lot. Yeah. Where nowadays people aren't, it's the rejection thing isn't a face-to-face piece. So I think the art of resiliency is going down over time here.
Yeah, you're probably right.
What's one of the hardest leadership choices or decisions you had to make so far?
I've had to cut projects that I really believed in, and I mean, we have one going on now that I love the project. I love what it could bring to that farming community, but I don't know if we have the bandwidth. Yeah. And so it's okay, do I greenlight this thing? And it has a pretty good chance of failing. Because we don't have the bandwidth, and this sort of comes up every 6 months, and that's always hard. On paper it's easy, what you need to do, but then it's emotionally hard when you actually want to support that project. So I think that's tough. I think apart from that, it is dealing with in the role that I'm in now. It is much larger than the roles that I've been in the past, managing people that are, maybe they have more experience than me. Or, again, the cross-cultural, I mean, I have 10, 12 different cultures in my direct reports. And so that's always difficult. And then I have to realize, okay, I have to manage this person different than that person, even though they're at the same level. And sometimes they're in the same meetings. And so that's a daily challenge.
Yeah, I'm hearing the emotional side of these decisions that we have to make sometimes. And I've seen that in the past with even the manufacturers I represent. Like, they drag a project on, 3 years longer than it probably should have. And then the new CEO comes in and it's shut the first day. It's and everyone knew it should have been closed 3 years ago, but we get emotionally attached to things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you see the global coffee trade over the next 5 to 10 years? Do you think it's something that is not going to be too affected by AI, or do you see anything weird on the horizon?
Yeah, well, I think consumption, historically, the amount of coffee going down throats has been extremely stable. 2% a year for the last 40 years or something like that. I mean, it's okay. It zigzags up and down, but the trajectory is pretty stable. So we don't see a massive issue there. Maybe there's something with lab-grown coffee that's coming. And there's a dozen companies working on that now. Some actually taste pretty decent.
Wow.
It's still prohibitively expensive. But that might have to come if China starts drinking the same amount of cups that the U.S. drinks per person. There ain't enough coffee. So maybe we need some innovation there. With AI, I don't think it's going to impact so much the growing and the producing of the coffee, because you're talking about something that, apart from Brazil, it's smallholder.
Sure.
Farmers,
little farmers,
farmers with 1 acre, 1 hectare. So it's not like you can do precision agricultural, with AI. I think AI can help companies like us. It can help on predicting trends. Let's say business processes. It can help roasters with their demand forecasting, things like that. We're using some. We've invested in some. We have a corporate ventures arm, and we invest in technology companies that are at least have 1 foot into the agricultural space. And we have a couple that are using, it's really machine learning, I guess a bit of AI on quality, so computer vision or near infrared, looking at the molecular structure, and then less subjective. So we have this problem all the time. Our lab manager, I taste this, I send you a sample in whatever country you taste, and you say, I don't like it. Okay, what do I do? Okay, can you describe what's wrong with it? Sometimes, it just doesn't meet spec. Okay,
it's
so
subjective.
It's very, if you ate onions, if you had a big onion omelet, right before you,
exactly,
it would taste different. So anything that we can do in our lab to make it more objective, we will do it. And I see AI is a part of that. We see AI with crop forecasting and satellite data, looking
weather
at
predictions,
looking at vegetative growth, things of that nature.
That's good. Now, you've been a middleman in your young career, really. I mean, you're really very few people are actually in between the buyer and the seller sometimes, in their roles. So when you were dealing with the farmers and dealing with the the purchasers and suppliers, what's like a leadership thing you learned for yourself that you still use today, that you were learning as a young guy dealing with farmers and different suppliers?
Be transparent. So that would be the first thing. If you're trying to hide something, just don't say it. Don't lie about it, because that'll normally come back to get you. And if you do that enough, you'll get cut out.
Sure.
Middleman is always. No one likes a middleman. Everybody thinks we're in.
You gotta find a way to get around this guy.
So get around. So you have to. Be honest about what service you're providing. And commodity trading used to be, I have all the information. I have guys on the ground in all the countries. You as the roaster, you don't know anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to take advantage, and it's really a zero sum. If I win, my counterparty loses. Which is a weird way to think about business. And so we're really trying to transform into a more service supply chain management, because a roaster wants to get coffee delivered to their factory and pay 90 days later. The farmer wants us to pick up the coffee from their farm, and actually they want money in advance to buy fertilizer. So there's a role for us in processing, logistics, financing, and risk management. So there's a role for us. We need to be transparent about what we do.
When you talk about farmers, and I put myself right back to dealing with farmers as a young guy selling trucks, and it's like you can't pass nothing. You better not even try to bullshit those guys. They're gonna get you. They read that very well, and I'm sure it's the same. It doesn't matter what culture you're in.
And it's tough. Farming, I come from an agricultural background as well, and farming is tough. That's a tough job, and they do know. And you think, oh, this old farmer, never been to school. What? They'll run circles around you if you're not careful.
You're exactly right.
So yeah, I would say the lesson is to never assume, and you always treat people assuming that they know more than you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And go in with that assumption.
Yeah. What's something you think people always get wrong about the coffee industry?
More like consumers? Gosh, I think a lot of people might think that it's big coffee, so to speak, and maybe not doing the right thing for the environment or for the farmers and all of this.
Like corn or something, wheat and corn.
But we are dealing in very remote places where you do have risk of forced labor. You do have risk of people putting agricultural products into the groundwater. So you do have these risks, and look, I'm sure it happens, but it's probably not as prevalent as most people think. Just because the risk of doing that is just so high. And you don't have big plantations again.
When they're mom and pop shops, they're trying their best just to get by and make things work.
So I think that's the big. People ask, oh, do you trade? Do you do fair trade coffee? Yeah, we trade that. We also trade other coffee. I think the big misconception is if it doesn't have a certification label in it, it's bad. That is very far from the truth.
Exactly.
The certifications are great, and they tick a lot of boxes, but that doesn't mean everything else is bad or unethically sourced.
And or third party tested or whatever. I'm at the point where I don't believe any of those labels or stickers, and I mean they have the heart healthy stuff on Cheerios,
I mean it's a stretch. What I would say is that I learned a lot during COVID. We were trying to get an organic certification done. Of course, the auditors couldn't travel. The roaster said, look, no problem. I understand the situation. Can you just prove to me that it's organic? And I won't use the official logo of organic. I just want to know. So yeah, we can do that because we have our team in that country. So we contacted the USDA Organic, and we said, okay, can you just tell us how you test? What's your soil testing, leaf analysis, so that we'll do it? They said, oh, we don't test. I said, what? They said, no, we only test if we see strong evidence that agrochemicals have been used. So a farmer has to leave a bag of pesticides on the ground for the one day a year you're on his farm to trigger a test. So to me, that's egregious. And so we try to go above and beyond. And so we do testing, and we do soil testing, and we do leaf analysis to sort of go beyond that. But it's a big misconception.
Oh, for sure.
You see that organic.
It's marketing.
They have not tested.
Yes, exactly. I think
it's super easy to do.
Yeah, I think it's just marketing ploy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never trust in that stuff.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily trust the label. Try to trust that, I think there's a lot of trust put into brands. And I will say there's a lot of brands doing a lot of great things and are very serious about their public statements. And they say, we're doing X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they're sending people to these countries and they're verifying it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Give me a example of a time where you were really tested as a leader. A real test for you.
Well, I mean, I would say in recently it's been a real test because we had a challenging year in 24. We have a global P&L, and what that means is if we make $1 in Brazil or in Korea or in North America, that's $1 that goes into everybody's bonus pool.
Oh, okay.
And so you have teams that works great when every single business unit earns money, everyone's happy, and we love the global P&L. When you have half that earn and half that lose,
yes,
then you really test things, and so that's, you have to have that resolve. I'm in the same boat, but that's challenging. And some days you just feel like, you know what, screw it.
Yeah.
But we have farmers that rely on us. We have
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And a team. So
That's why you're a leader.
Yeah. And I do think that we are, people go on about stress and all this and how to reduce it. But I do think as a leader, we have an obligation. We've been asked by the shareholders or whatever to, hey, I need you in this role. And that comes with stress.
Yes.
And you need to
correct
to deal with that and be able to manage that and still.
I mean, I look at it as I have a challenging time right now and have for a couple of years here, but this has allowed me to grow so much. It's like when you're out of your comfort zone and things aren't good, you sure do have a more acceleration at trying to get your people better. Then when times are good, we don't care that much. And so I think that, for me, I look at it as okay, well, these are tough times. How are we going to move to the next level? Because now we have a little bit of time to learn or to get better.
Yeah, there is a reflection there, and you got to make those tough decisions, and you got to do it faster than you could do in normal times. So it's certainly a learning experience.
Now, would you allow your daughter to get in this business, or would you say, hey, honey, don't do this job?
No, sure, no problem. I think trading and what I do has allowed me to, I've done business and traveled to 60, 70 countries and experienced so much. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's cool.
Never. I hadn't thought still too young for that conversation.
Sure.
But no, I think it's good. I do enjoy the trading and the relationships that come with it. As opposed to sitting behind a screen and trading equities or trading gold or oil or whatever. I respect people that do that, and that takes an intellect that probably I don't have. It's not for me.
Yeah, I get that. Now, you travel a lot, and how do you balance being a good dad and husband and being a good leader and a boss? How does that work for you?
Well, you have to ask my family how I fare on that.
Well, you're still married, so I think it's okay.
Look, I really try to be home by Friday and be home on the weekends. So I'll take stupid connections or whatever flying to make sure I'm home on the weekends. So to spend that time, and what's helped is also just, again, taking the weekend, and I typically don't work on the weekend. I used to work 7 days, especially when I was in the factories. But now say, you know what, Monday through Friday, it's for the company.
Yeah.
And I can pump out 80 hours those 5 days, no problem. And that's the agreement I have with my family. Look, but on the weekend, I really try to focus and to be there. And so that's the balance I've struck. And then I try to block an hour a day or something as well. And I put it in my Outlook so that people don't call.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it is, it's a challenge, especially in any industry, but with ours, we have clients in every time zone.
Well, that's what I was thinking in my head is like, just because you're on your 9 to 5 here, the rest of the world.
I mean, and then the same for holidays.
Yes.
So we had our holidays in Vietnam last week.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Australia, New Zealand didn't.
Yeah, that's right. I had the same thing.
You know, India didn't.
Yeah.
Europe had one of the days, you know, so it's, you have to balance that. And you have to be, sometimes I'd say you have to be a bit of an asshole on that.
Sure.
And just say, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
This is how we're going to operate, and I'm going to treat you the same way when you're on holiday in whatever country you're in.
That's right.
And it's generally fine once you set that boundary.
For sure.
Yeah.
What, in 30 years, your daughter or your grandkids are watching this, what do you want to, like, let them know how you feel they can unlock their own potential in themselves?
Well, they need to know that they can fail and make mistakes, and you know, the tech industry says it fail fast, but in commodity trading we do the same thing. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you have a position, you got to get out of that thing. You cannot be emotionally tied to it. And I've seen that time within this industry and without it.
Relationships with staff and all that.
Holding on to something too long. And so the number one thing is, you know, realize, hey, I got to get out of this, whether it's relationship or work. If you know something is wrong, typically it's wrong and it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
You know, so get out, survive another day.
For sure. For sure. We hold on to staff too long sometimes. We hold on to customers too long sometimes. Oh, man.
Yeah.
In your leadership with the local Vietnamese people, what's one principle that you really feel that you need to be good at to
really respect that the culture? And if you do that, I think people respect you enough, and everybody wins.
It's the cultural intelligence, right? I mean,
but you can't
really
butt
need
heads.
that.
Yeah,
for sure. I've seen, you know, how I looked at things when I first got in this country and how I look at them now. Oh my gosh, completely different.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately, you know, sometimes you have to go through a few years of figuring out, oh, that's why we had that. Oh, okay.
You gotta pay your dues, you know.
You gotta fail and go. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out, James.
Yeah, no, thanks.
I appreciate it.
For the good coffee.
Yeah, no problem.
No
problem. All right, I appreciate you coming in.
All right, cheers.
Thanks, buddy. You bet.
All right.
Thank you very much for watching. If this conversation sparked something in you, share it with a friend. Leave us a review, even if it's bad. Let me know, and follow the show for more episodes like this. Now remember, leadership isn't about strategy, it's about the people and the purpose and being present. Until next time, please remember to try to unlock the potential in the people you love and lead.